would you then indicate, based on your typical response time or what you want it to be, how long would it take you to actually meet that targeted language? Now you might ask, okay, where did you get this 15 and 3 from? Well, if you go back to the THIRA step 2 and you look under the green category, you will find where we identified planning, and you will see here with the estimate or the impacts that we identified in planning. And oh, my apologies, trying to get over here. It's difficult to do when I can't move it around. And you will see here that we have on the 15, this is challenging for me. Hold on just one second. Here we go. I'm able to slide over this way. Alrighty. So we have here partner organizations involved in incident management. You will see here that is 15. You will see jurisdictions affected, 3. So the reason that that's important is that we've already identified those in the scenario above that then translates into the THIRA step 3, where it reiterates itself into this area, and then it says here we have the numbers that you've identified in the previous step, and all you have to do is go through and identify what we call the time hack. And here is the number that you would type in, and this allows you to go into either minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, or years. Then each of those you would go through and you would identify, you would show and hide and go through, and you would see all of them were identified in the previous step, and you would do the time hack. Additionally, there is a question of which is identified threats and hazards most challenges your ability to achieve this capability target. And again, we've already pre-loaded and identified that, which was the VBID, which we pre-populated and preloaded into the response color-coded mission area that Fatality Management Services was identified under. So we felt that this was one of the easiest ways that we could do this, and for you all. Now, one of the other issues is that some of the areas have more than one capability target, and you might see that there are, like here with critical transportation, there are actually 2 different capability targets that you would have to respond to with the time hack. And then you would go through and do those for each of those core capabilities in THIRA step 3. Now, I know I haven't yet talked about the SPR, but I did want to go ahead and take a moment because when I talk about the SPR, after I go back to the other PowerPoint, it's going to be talking about the 2020, but I wanted to share with you how the 2019 SPR was able to then be gathered, and the data was also captured for the 2020. So the the SPR1, again, we're looking at a it looks very similar to the THIRA THIRA 3 because it has all 32 core capabilities, but this is SPR1, which actually assesses the capabilities. So what's based on the language and the capability targets in THIRA 3, we are now going to identify the county's current capability and how it changed over the last year, including the capabilities that were lost, sustained, and built. And then you're going to provide additional context to explain the reported data, including your confidence level and whether your community has had any mutual aid agreements relevant to meeting the target and the sources you used to complete your capability assessment. And this is what it looks like. So this is when a lot of people will be like, oh my goodness, what is it that you actually are expecting me to do here? And so this is when, again, it's really important that you look at what has already been pre-identified and what is it that you need to respond to if it is applicable. So here we have where we looked at THIRA 1, 2, 3, the capability target, and it's all captured here at the top, where you have your within every 24 months, and we read out that entire capability target that auto-populates your 15 and your 3, and then what we have down here is we bring down here how that capability target has changed in the last year, which is why it's really going to be difficult for you to complete your THIRA or your SPR before really probably August, September, because of the fact that you are calculating the data and you're assessing the data from that current year. So now in the once you get through your first SPR, and then you're looking at updating it, it's going to go a lot faster. But then when you go back to your THIRA, the initial one, going back and updating that and seeing where you're at, it's going to make it a little bit easier. But again, you're looking at it based on that year that you're actually assessing. So doing it all in January is not going to give you a real accurate assessment of where you are toward the end of the year based on what it is that you do to close those gaps. So here we have your partner organizations involved in incident management. And so you see up here in this middle part, you have a red that says estimated beginning capability for both the partner organizations and then the jurisdictions affected. Then the next column is your capability lost. So if you lost anything, if you, let's say that on partner organizations, someone retired and they haven't been able to replace that person, and now you are with an empty seat in that ESF, or maybe the person's brand new, so you got to get them trained up. That's a capability that's lost. And so what you're, and then remember what you're looking back at is, your target above is 15. Okay. Well, you have here that you had 24 people. All right. So you were above your target. So you're doing great. So you didn't lose any. And then you were able to sustain 24. Now, if you weren't able to sustain it, and if you're, let's say that this 24 number was a 15 or was a 15, and you lost one, and so, but you were able to actually sustain the 14 that you had, then that would be 14. If you didn't build any, because you're still training this person, or they haven't been hired yet, or you were able to, quickly get in there, you could actually lose and build in the same year, or, it could be a different sort of a capability. And then, but if it's 0, and then what's your capability estimate? Right now, we're looking at it being a 14 because it was still a loss there. And so then when you come down, jurisdictions, it's the same methodology. And when you come down to the POETI, which is planning, organization, equipment, training, and exercise, then you indicate which areas you lost, sustained, and or built. So if you were able to sustain all of these, then you would put yes in all of them. However, if you lost someone due to them leaving, that would go under organization. But if you also need to train them, there you go. And if you need to, you just click on yes. It should click there. and then exercise as well, if they need to get exercise, and then you would click on yes. And so these would be the areas then that would be captured further down the spreadsheet, and I'll show you what that is, and because this is an example, as I said, so you'd be able to see exactly how that played out. And then you would answer based on what did your did your capability lose, or how did your capability lose capability over the previous year? And you could say retirement of ESF2 personnel. And then how did your community sustain? And you had consistent training and exercises with partners. And then how did your community build capability over the last year? That could be an NA, or you could just leave it blank. And then here we would have describe your role played in mutual aid, or, so did mutual aid, was it relevant to achieving your target? If you click yes, then you should have a description of how it was. And you could say something like ESFs or mutual aid, mutual aid supported our response and recovery capability across the sectors. Something just brief, quick, and how it did it, and then you move on. Then when you come down, because you're still not over yet, you're going to decide what's your confidence level in the accuracy of your capability assessment. And this is a 1 to 5, with 1 being lower, 5 being higher, and then you click on that. And if you click on higher, it will show that. If you click on lower, it will show that. And then again, the sources that were used are there if they are applicable, and how it was that you determined what your current capability was. And all right, so this is what you do for each of those particular areas for SPR step 1, and you would do that for all of them. So obviously this isn't something that you could sit down in an afternoon and knock out, unless it was a really long afternoon and you had a lot of information. SPR 2, so this, after reviewing the quantitative capability between your gap, between your target gap and your current gap, this helps you identify the priority you place, and then helps you describe in the POETI those gaps that will then drive what that capability gap is, and then which will then help you identify the actions that you need to close and or reduce that capability gap. So if we look here at operational coordination, well, actually, let's go back to our planning, because that was when I was working with there, and you'll see here that we had, this is the capability target, this is what, and you'll see it was automatically populated from the previous one. So it automatically populates what your gap is. So you see here that there is a -1 gap. And then it asks for identify the priority you place on fully achieving your planning target, and whether by addressing the gap or no gap by maintaining that current capability. And then you would just click below, and if it's a high priority, medium priority, low priority, then you would simply click that. And keeping in mind that not every gap can be a high priority, so you need to make sure that you identify it with which ones you're going to be hitting first, because that's where you really want to focus all of your effort and your funding toward closing or reducing those gaps. Excuse me. So next we have how you're going to describe across the POETs each of those gaps. And so it asks you for those, do you have a gap in planning? And if you've identified yes, because you have to click on that, it's either going to be yes or no. If it's a yes, then you identify it here. We have here planning gap due to retirements and attrition of personnel. Then across the way, we have describe how your community plans to address your gap and sustain. And then again, there's a red button or a red where you click below, and then there's another drop-down button, and it has build capability, sustain capability, both build and sustain capability, and NA. And then you would select that, and then if you have both build and sustain capability, then you would say, okay, describe how you're going to do that. And so an example that we used for not addressing the gap was, while we have a gap in planning, we're able to plan effectively and will not address this gap next year due to competing priorities. But if you do have a gap, you could say we will address a gap by engaging new staff and partner agencies to explain critical need for their participation in our effort to reduce the gap of this core capability. And again, this is just example language that we added in there for you. So then you slide down to each of those. You've got planning, you've got organization across both ways, you've got equipment, training, and then exercise. And then finally on this one, you have identify the time frame in which you will prioritize implementing the approaches, these approaches, and then you've got your selection is between less than a year, 1 and 3 years, more than 3 years, and then no defined timeline. The one thing I need to really stress here is that there is no right or wrong answer in this assessment. This is your assessment, and you need to be honest with when you and how you plan to prioritize things. We know that most everything is based on funding and whether or not you can address gaps and how you can do it. So there's nothing wrong with indicating in there, that, based on funding, that, we are applying for with this, this is what we plan on doing. And then what you can do is that this is what you then attach to your grant applications. So then the folks that you're applying for grants for can say, hey, look at this. I'm actually able to go in here and then apply for grants, and this is my justification. Finally, and you would do that for all 32 core capabilities. Then for SPR 3, again, it looks very similar. This is probably one of the easiest steps other than THIRA 1. And this is where you go into each one and you're going to identify the funding that you've received based on those core capabilities. And it's basically, again, following whether or not, if your community has not sustained it, then you don't have to worry about that. If it did, so if it's an NA, it's an NA. Otherwise, you need to click below and you need to identify the sources and then how much they are. And all they ask for is there's a drop down, which is 50%. Primary source is approximately 50. Additional is less than 50. Not a known source. Definitely not a source, which, as everybody knows, is my favorite because that's like, that's like that big bold letters. It's not just not a known source, but it's definitely not a source. So I love those. And then you would then go through here, and if you don't know what all of these acronyms stand for and the funding types, then you would go over here. You would hover, click on it, and then it would come up. Chemical Stockpile Emergency Preparedness Program, HMGP Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. So there's a lot of acronyms here that you might not know what they mean. Again, feel free to just click on those, and it will then break those down. up to and including state, local, private, or nonprofit, which, you know, you might ask, well, that might be local, but if it's not, if it's maybe a maybe you got money from a trust, or from a, you know, someone that just donated money to your county EMA, then that, you know, is where you would identify that. So, have you made investments related to this target support of protected timeline? That is going to be either a yes or a no. And if it's a yes, then you can describe it here and how those capabilities were sustained with those grants. And they would like it to be used in a real world incident over the past year. And then that is what you do. And then if, so that is the capabilities that were sustained, and to the right is capabilities that were built over the last year. And then once you do that, that is the end of the THIRA and SPR process, except for on the SPR, we have also added in for some of those gaps that are not, those target gaps that are not identified on the functional areas, we have identified these here. And this is actually what we've determined is one of our biggest bangs for our buck, because this is the rest of the story. This isn't just about identifying a particular impact statement. This isn't just about targeting in planning whether or not you have vacancies or you have issues with your stakeholders or jurisdictions. This also, because you may not, but you may have a big old gap in continuity planning, or you may have a big old gap in strategic planning or pre-incident planning. And so this is where you would go in and identify those other gaps simply by clicking a yes or a no in the drop down, or actually it's just a yes in the drop down, and then indicating the priority on it and your confidence level, and then you could write a brief description and address the gaps. And we're going to show you how important this is as we go forward. And so these are all your 32 core capabilities. And once all of these are done, and you've identified it, and then if you don't have a gap, you just don't put any yes or no. You just leave it empty. So then the next tab over is a quick summary, which you will. This will become very familiar to you soon as as we get into the 2020. But this shows you a snapshot that you can give to your county commissioners and stakeholders as far as what it is, what the core capability is, what the targets are, priorities, impact types, the data, the numbers, level of confidence, and the POETI areas. And so this is again, this is an example of what a completed one would look like. And then the next tab over is what the standardized targets are. Again, this is kind of a snapshot based on the number of fatalities and the key impacts for those targets. And then it also describes the core capabilities. So this is in a nutshell what the 2019 THIRA SPR tool looks like and what we used to capture for the 2020 data. So now I'm going to return back to our back to the PowerPoint, if I can find it. And here it is. All right. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the 2020 SPR, which you guys have already seen a little bit of it with the 2019. Oops, oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I totally went through that too quickly. All right, so we already talked about the three-phase approach with the SPR. So where phase one is assessing and describing the current capability. Phase two is identifying and addressing the gaps and the approaches to how you're going to close those gaps. And then step three is identifying the impacts of funding sources and on the impact of those capabilities. So I am now going to click here and share with you what the 2020 THIRA report looks like. And I accidentally shared the, all right, I need to go back here real quick. My apologies. Clicked on the wrong viewer. This one. Oh my goodness. This is definitely user error here. I do apologize. All right. So, my apologies for that delay. Okay, so now we're going here to the 2020, which, as you can see, only has 4 tabs at the bottom. And what we have done is we have captured the quick summary in the 2019, and we have and for each county, and then we have also added in some. We've added in the ability for them to go in and click on whether or not the planning, organization, equipment, trading, exercise gaps are still applicable. And then they can click either yes, they can click NA, or NR, which means that it would not be reported. And oops, I think there might be a snafu there. So if it was a yes or no, or NR, which is not reported, and then which this would be here, that the blue is NR, and then the red would be your lower confidence, with 5 being your higher confidence. And again, all of these are transferred over from the 2019 report that each county did. But if those, if that information has changed, then they could go in here and they could change those with the priorities and the gaps. There is a step-by-step guide for both the 2019 and 2020 completion reports for both the 2019 and 2020 reports. So it takes you step by step through it. But one of the, so anything that changed from your capability gaps to your priority status, confidence level, you can make those changes here. The only difference is that if the only way that will show a gap is if you have a gap in your POETI area. So here you will see, like in public information and warning, that for new communication tools and technology, that there was nothing reported as being a gap. Now, it didn't necessarily indicate that there wasn't a gap. It just says that it wasn't reported. In the tool that is in WebEOC, it actually will give you the option of selecting no, in which case then it will indicate that either no gap or that there is none reported. And then you also have your low priority, medium priority, etc. So one other feature to this is the description of a gap. So you can click on what the gap is, and it will take you to that area. And then you can simply describe what the gap is with free text. And then if you do that, need more trucks, okay? Then when you go back, this is the one that you would have to click back on. It doesn't automatically take you back. You go back and click on the county tab, and then you would see here that if you scroll down to the
That was fatality.
yeah, did I already pass it? I did. Thank you, Joshua. There it is, fatality. You'll see it says see description. And so then you click on the see description, oops, and then it would bring you back and you would be able to see that. Another thing that it has an option for is to be able to select courses, and this is a great tab that we added in this year, so EMAs can identify what training courses they would like, and then take this to your DPC meetings to where you guys can then, when you do your now your IPPW, which was the former TPW or TEP for your training and exercise plan, this part actually will help you guys identify your training needs. And whether or not it's just for you and what you need, or because it also has online courses as well. But you basically would click on the courses, or click on that course button. So let me go back here. You click under select courses, click on the button, and then you would you could click on the core capability here. So like operational communications, it gives you these particular courses that you can click on, and then you would click on an X to identify what training you wanted. And then once you do that, then you click back home, and it would, if you go up to the operational coordination here, you see here where it has 3 classes, then you could click on show courses, and unfortunately that link doesn't appear to be working, so you would go here under selected courses, and you can clear your filter, and it would, and again, the guide, the training aid, takes you step by step through all of these, and then you would be able to see all of the courses that you clicked on based on those core capabilities in the training course, and then you could print that slide and take that with you. So I know I didn't do a very good job of explaining all of that, but it really is quite easy to use. Okay, so that is the 2020 THIRA or SPR, excuse me. And I am now going to go back to the PowerPoint, and maybe it's going to let me click. Here we go. Okay, so now I am now going to open it up to questions. So if anyone has any questions, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen so I can see your faces. If anybody has any questions, or if they would like to, you know, you could raise your hand or type in any questions. And I don't know, I haven't looked at the chat room, so I'm not sure if there's been questions that are being asked.
No questions.
No questions so far. Okay, so I am all open for questions. So please have at me if you need to kind of digest this a little bit. I know it's some pretty dry material. I try to make it as exciting as I can, usually when I go through some of this stuff or in person, and you know, I try to be a little more entertaining there. But does anyone have anything? Wow. Nothing at all. No. Nothing. I know we're coming up on our time. That I had actually, I actually had slotted, I guess, until 3 o'clock. So
We have a question from Roger.
okay.
How long from start to finish?
For which one?
For one of these.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. Be a little more clear in what you mean, like for the whole process.
Yeah, the whole process.
You know, Roger, well, for the HIRA, it really depends on the county and what the county indicates is their greatest threats and hazards, and how you know all of that. Each county's different, so, and I have not not being an EMA that I've sat down. I have sat down with quite a few and have gone through the THIRA and the SPR process, which does take quite a bit of time. I would say because you need to probably take it out in bite-sized chunks. But for that process, it could be up to, you know, a good week to, you know, really devote. For the HIRA, I would think you could probably do that in really maybe a morning, afternoon, or a full day. The surveys are pretty simple. The CPG 101 is a little bit more in depth, but those usually you could do inside of an hour or so. And as far as the 2020, is anyone on the line right now that turned in your 2020? How long did it take you to update? If you don't mind sharing that. Or how long did it take you to do your other THIRA SPR? Anyone at all?
What's my password?
Hey, how you doing? Oh, that's good. I like that one. What's your password? Yeah, what is your password, huh? You're funny. I like that one. I like your poster. It kind of reminds me of mine in the back. I don't know if you guys can see me or not. Can you? Can you see me? No, you can't? Let's see. Can you? Nope, you can't see me now? Yes, no? Yeah, no, now not?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. Okay. So, anyone want to volunteer how long it took to do the 2020? If you've done it? Oh, you think my camera lens is closed? Uh-oh. Well, thank you, Cassie. I appreciate that. Well, if you guys were able to see me once before, right? Yeah? So maybe it's just that, no. I'm trying to turn it on here. You guys can see my face. Maybe it's because I'm not sharing my screen. I don't know. Okay, I'm sure you guys don't really care about seeing me. Let me see here. Camera. Yeah. Live cam. There we go.
There you are.
Hey, Hi, guys. Okay,
There you are.
there I am. I was gonna say, there you can see there's my map
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, there's my map. Okay, so, now that you can see me, does it make you feel more comfortable being able to, ask me questions? No. Lindsay, oh, I think you wrote that before. Oh, yeah, okay, you're funny. All right. Yes, we're available to work with our partner. Yep. All right. Will help be made available to aid the EMAs in completion process. Graham, absolutely. We are always, offer our help. And I have sat on the phone and have been in many a EMA's office helping them through it. Oftentimes, though, when we get into it, it kind of goes into getting in the weeds, and folks quickly realize that they need to get information from their stakeholders, because you really can't, EMAs, you guys know, you guys know how your county is, but when it comes to some of the real nitty gritty stuff that some of these things are asking, when you're looking at, especially like real hazard specific stuff, like the health and, medical and, the transportation stuff, logistics stuff, the hazmat, you really need to get, your other stakeholders involved to see where they're at, because a lot of times they may think that they don't have any issues, but, or, the EMA may think, no, we're good. But then when you go ask the stakeholder, they'd be like, we actually kind of do, it's like, okay, so let's talk about forensics, and, detection. And, so, what about your search and rescue? And, it's like, it's like, hey, you guys have drones? So those are some of the things that we really need for, that's why it's critical when EMAs are completing these, that it's done as much as it can be with all of your partners, and making it a survey, which I know we've talked about before, versus just sitting down. And if you guys have, I don't know how often you meet with your ESFs, having when you do your meetings, just knocking out a few of them at the time, could be the way to do it. And, I'm sure that there's many different ways to do it. But again, what we're trying to do is, once we get a really good foundation of data, once that county EMA really takes the time to scrub and truly analyze each of those, to go back in and update them, it's going to be a lot easier. It's going to be a lot easier, because not all they have to do is just go back in every year, especially, for the SPR, and just update it for the THIRA. Yeah, it's going to take a minute. The HIRA, again, you have, the data that you have from the previous year that you can go in, and, you just, you print it out and you go in and you just, click it off, but some of the counties, when you go in and look at when you look at their HIRA, they only have like 1 or 2 threats that they identify. And it's like, we know that each county has more, and you should look at your threats based across the spectrum. It's like, there's, in the grand scheme of things, there's really not that many. Joshua, do you know, I know that you did the dashboard. Do you know offhand how many threats and hazards we actually assess total?
57.
57. Thank you. Look at that. So if you're looking at, especially when you're looking at the ones that don't really affect your county, and it's a low priority, it's not going to take you that long. And once you do it once, going back in and updating that, it's not some of the counties are incredible with the amount of information that they give us, the amount of detail that they give us, and all it does is justify your grant applications. You can attach all of this information to your grant applications, but to just not do it or to not give it the attention that it needs, because it is a daunting process. It all it does is really, it just hurts your county, and it hurts getting grants, you know. But I mean, all of these things can be used for your mitigation grants, your fire folks, your your police, all of your other counties that your other stakeholders that are doing this with you, they can also utilize this data for their grant applications. It's not just for you. It's not just, you know, and so it's really important that taking the time to do it right, at least one time, will then provide you with data that it's so much easier to update data than it is to try to create it from scratch every single time. Right? So doing this, especially when we're looking at those additional core capabilities and those functional areas, if you know that, you know, a lot of times the hardest part is just figuring out your priorities, because you can't, not everything can be a priority, but you've got to select a few. You know, it's like, okay, what are your top 3? What are your top 4? What are you going to put your money toward? You know, every county or every, you know, except for the South, has cybersecurity as number 1. Okay, so what are you doing toward closing that gap with cybersecurity? Are you holding more trainings? Are you providing additional software updates? Do you have a contract out with an agency or organization to help you with that? You know, do you have a completely separate server that is off-site? You know, what's your continuity plan? How does that look? And so this is where truly identifying what those gaps are and looking at, okay, you say this is a priority, okay, put your money where your mouth is, and how are you closing it? And then maybe it's not so much a priority, because as a threat, yeah, it's still a threat, but you feel pretty good about your response to it, about your what you've done to protect yourself from that, what you've done to you know, to help mitigate that, the training that you've done, and that's great. And so then it could slide down, and that's obviously what we want to see. You know, is how these threats are identified. And you know, one of the things that we've talked about is when you identify that, you know, that one main threat on your THIRA, and you know, showing how you've taken that top threat and each year how you've helped reduce that gap a little bit. So at the end of that SPR year, you can then look at another gap the following THIRA cycle. You know, that's an opportunity that we can all, you know, benefit from. So any comments other than questions? If you guys don't have questions, any
There's another question from Jasmine Graham.
Is that something IDHS could help with? Perhaps distribute a list of past threats or occurrences? Yes. And Graham, I'm not sure when you jumped on or if I even talked about it, but we are going to be, and when I showed those charts for the HIRA, those were those past threats between 2016 and 2020. And so those are those past threats that we have identified. Regarding core capabilities, each of those counties has that in WebEOC in their 2020 report. It shows what your gaps are there for each of those. Did that answer your question, Graham? Okay, cool. And just so you know, the HIRA that will be coming out, it is a It is a controlled document because it has FOUO information in it, but we are working with our legal folks and folks at the Fusion Center to be able to, you guys to be able to get a hard copy that you can keep. We obviously can't put everything on the website because of that, but because we obviously don't want to have everyone know what all of our threats and hazards and or at least like how we, what the biggest one is, in a certain community. So, we don't want everybody to be able to manipulate that. So, but you all will be able to get a copy of that as trusted agents. Okay, do you feel as though you learned a little something? Yay, nay, good, bad, thumbs up, thumbs down? Okay, all right. Well, hey Perry, hey Kate, how are you? It's good to hear from you. Wanted to thank you team for all the hard work. Great. Perfect. Thanks, Kate. It's always nice to hear from you. Hopefully we'll see each other, and congratulations on your new, I guess not so new role. Look forward to coming down and seeing you. Hey, Paul. Good to see you up there. Nice, yeah, nice little view you got there. I miss my windows. They moved us. Okay. Any last comments? This will be uploaded into WebEOC under the area in the THIRA SPR guidance, and as is our summary report webinar that we did. So if you have any questions on that, as well as the step-by-step guides. So, oh, Mark, you are cracking me up. Yeah. Well, I don't have candy for you this time, so, but yeah, it's always exciting, isn't it? Woo! You guys are too funny. Oh, hey, by the way, since I have your undivided attention, or divided attention, however the case may be, I wanted to let you know that we're also going to be rolling out the state's new, hey, Jen Toby, I like your hair. Girl, peace. We're going to be rolling out our new emergency operations plan, which we're renaming it from the CEMP, since in state law it says EOP versus CEMP. It's basically the same type of document, because the CEMP really does cover everything that the EOP does, but the renaming of it. But what we are doing is we're introducing the lifelines in it. And yes, we will be having a wonderful template for the counties to be able to use, and we'll be more than happy to help you guys with those as well. This will also include the updates for the ESFs, and we are having some EMAs that are going to be on our planning committee with that. So we are really looking forward to getting that rolled out and getting your all's feedback with that. We will be having a public comment period, as well as the new promulgation and signing ceremony. So, and as you know, because these documents are very fluid in how they are, written, they're almost virtually under, update the minute they go out. So we will be doing that, but I just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up on that. We have been very busy on our end doing that. So I'm trying to incorporate those lifelines into our plans, and hopefully it will help us with our reporting, as well as using some awesome templates that Jeremy Schwartz, who is our FEMA Fit Fit team leader, he provided us, and he's just amazing. So, all right. Any other questions? I feel like tap dancing a little, and I did leave my tap shoes at home. Paul, you guys are cracking me up. Hi, Joe. Hi, Kate. Okay. All right. Well, if you guys, I believe all of you have mine and Joshua's email, but I'm going to pop it back up here just in case you don't. There they are there. And thanks for everything you guys do. Thanks for spending a little bit of your Friday afternoon. I am sorry, it's Friday afternoon. Sometimes Fridays are my days that I'm not crazy busy, as crazy as that sounds. So thank you guys so much. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, please send them to us. We want, or suggestions to how we can make it better. Please send it our way. And I want to thank you. Have a great weekend. Be safe. And just thanks for everything you guys are doing for us. So have a great time. Thanks so much, you guys.